Welcome to BA 382. This is your database access assignment. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that we can go ahead and see some of the things that we need access to. So we are here in Moodle in BA 382, and up on top, underneath the announcements and the syllabus and information about the book, you will see how to access Office 365 for students. So there's a few ways that you can get access if you need it. You can log in with your username for SOU and download that. You can also use your virtual lab, and that is ability for some of our online students to access some of the data and software that we use here at the university. And if you need help with that, you should call the computer help desk. And they will help you, walk you through how to get access to that if you've never done that before. Sometimes I get brand new students in this course that have just transferred from another university. So that virtual lab is really important for students that are doing distance learning. If you're here on campus, I suggest that if you don't have this on your computer, one, you can download it, of course, through the free Office 365 link. You can also go ahead and go to computer labs. We have our business computer lab here in Central Hall, and then we also have the ones in the library, and then in the Medford campus at the Higher Education Center, we have computer labs available for students. So I'm going to go over to week 5 because that's when we start our assignments, and inside week 5 you're going to see the database assignment, and that document is 20 pages. You're also going to need to download this members database and the access, and when you have access, then you'll be able to open the database. So I'm going to go ahead and download this and open it. And when I open it, I need to change where I'm sharing my screen. So if you could just hang on one moment. So it's really important for you here to enable your content. So up on top on the home tab, you're going to see enable content in the yellow bar. So make sure you enable your content. And we're going to go ahead and walk through Microsoft Office Access. So here inside of this database, you can see database has 5 different tables, and this tables create information and relationships between one another, and that's what databases contain and how they structure them. There will always be these tables of information. Inside of the tables will be fields of information. The members table has member ID, first name, last name, their member type by code, and that code relates to a description, and I will show you that in the next table. And then more information about the member, their address, city, state, zip, home phone. So it's really important to structure a database in a way that helps you to understand the data that you need for members, for example. And then for member type, you need to understand those codes of 1, 2, or 3, what they mean. So a code of 1 means that they're a patron and they pay $75 in annual dues. So you can see the descriptions up here in the headers of each of these columns, and they tell you information. And so number 2 means they're a donor and they pay $50 a year. 3 means they're a friend and they pay $30 a year. Third table, payment method, has another coding system of 1, 2, and 3, and that 1, 2, and 3 means by payment method of what description. So our payment method description for 1 is check. Our payment method description for 2 is credit card. Our payment description number 3 is for cash, and so on and so forth. Payments, for example, we have our payment ID of a number of maybe the 7,804 person to pay that day kind of thing. The member ID relates back to the member table, the payment amount, how much they paid on what date with payment method and payment type as the codes. And you can see the payment type here is for 1 meaning membership dues, 2 meaning building fund, and 3 being scholarship fund. I'm going to close these tables because as we launch into the assignment, it gets a little distracting to have too much information sitting up here in your window. Okay. And I'm not saving anything because we really didn't make any considerable changes. So on your assignment, you see through page 1 that we are going to see how these data information relates to each other. So I'm just going to give you the map and show you real quick the map of that. So I'm in the 3rd tab, create. I'm going to query design. And when I get into query design, you can put tables here into this sandbox a couple of different ways. This way, where it shows the show table aspect, you can just click on which table you want and you can add it. And each of the tables, one by one, or all, in our case. And you can see that these relationships get really confusing, right? Where's this going back here behind there? Where's this going? Does that mean over here? What's that mean? So if you lay it out based on the screen of what you see in your original page 1 of the assignment, and you'll see here that I have done a couple of things like lengthening so I can see all the fields and putting this information in a way that looks very similar to what is on page 1 of your assignment. So the relationship database is created like this. So you can enforce relationships between different information in tables, and you'll get to doing that in your shipment, which is part 3 of this assignment. But for now, this database is already created for you, which is super helpful, right? So what we're trying to create is a connection between member type and members. So we can relate this information to this relationship because we've enforced a relationship between member type ID and member type ID that's here in members table. So we're able to make connections in a membership query or a report based on that information. And same and so on and so forth as we go forward between members and payments, and between payments and payment method and payments and payment type. You can see that member type does not relate to payment method in any way, except for if we had all 4 of these tables, we would be able to query data, maybe by member type description through payment description. Okay, but you have to have all of these kinds of things, tables across this, all 4 of these tables up there to be able to make that query. For the purposes of this assignment, we are going to do number 1 on page 3. And in order to do look at page 3 at the assignment of what we're being requested, which is what are the total payments received by member type by 2017. We need a few fields of information. Now those fields of information are inside tables, but we need to decide which tables we need. So if you look at the screenshot on page 3, we only need 3 of the tables. So here's a quick way to show you how to remove tables. You just right click on the table that you have and then click remove table, and then you're down to the tables that you need for a particular query. Just a point of note that if you have the wrong tables or you've had too many tables, it won't process your data. So that's one reason why some of your data won't run, for example, if you happen to come up with that error. So right now we have looked at all of the tables. We've seen the information that's inside of the tables, the fields of information, and how they relate to each other. So we're going to move into our assignment. On page 2, I'm just going to do the first one for you. On page 2, we have a mapping ability, and what that shows you is a process step by step on how you can map out an assignment. Okay, this is pretty straightforward. We've been using a standardized kind of assignment like this for 10 years, so it's really important that you read each line and actually process the information, and that you use your critical thinking and logic skills to be able to do this. So we're just going to draft our output saying by member type, we want to know by friend, donor, or patron, what were their total payments for 2013. Okay, so in order to do this, we've already hit create in our query design, because that's where we were when I showed you all of these tables and how they relate to each other. So we've already done that. So create query design, that's step 1 and 2. We picked out the tables that we want. We need member type, members, and payments, right? Because we want to know by member type description, which is a field in member type. We don't need anything off of members, but we can't connect member type to payments without having members up here, right? Because there's no relationship entity between payments and member type. So if we want to know by member type how much they paid and by what date and on what date for 2017, we need payment amount and payment date. So we're going to take these fields, literally click on the field, highlight it, and drag and drop it down here into our query design. So up here is our sandbox, and down here is where you design the criteria and information that you want. We want to know by payment amount, and we want to know by a certain date, right? All of 2017. So now that we have those informations down here, let me explain a little bit about these fields, tables, sort, show, criterias, and ors, and what these mean. So obviously we took a field, right? This is the field line, member type description off of the table described member type, right? And so on and so forth across here. This sort allows us to sort the data that we're doing in a number of different ways. Ascending, descending, you might have a later information, one of the queries, or maybe one of the reports that asks you to sort by last name or something like that. The show line allows you to show the data on your query and report or not, right? There might be things you don't need to show. So, and then in criteria, we have a couple of criteria that we're going to set throughout the entirety of this assignment, but for number one, we have a criteria of our date. And so we have a date that we need to set. So I'm just going to keep going down on page 2. So we've done our show tables, we've added the tables we want, we have decided which of the fields of information that we want in number 4 and 5 and 6 down here, right? And it gives you a chance to run this and see what it would show you, that it comes back with 6,000 unique pieces of information. But we don't need to do that right now. You can do that for testing if you'd like. But I'm just going to move straight into selecting our criteria and putting our totals and sums and kinds of things in there. So I have switched over to our design button and up here. And a reason I have done that is because this allows us to do different types of things inside of our query. The most notable thing is that it allows you to see your totals line. And it also allows you to see your property sheet. And that property sheet's really going to be helpful when you start running your report. So remember these two things, okay? And one of your assignments for here in the top 7 queries, you're also going to need this return all section. So you're going to say return our, the top 10 results, those kinds of things, all right? So we don't need to insert or delete or build anything. We don't need to insert or delete columns, which is nice because you can do a lot of that if you need to automatically. You can pick things up and drag them and drop them where you want to in here. So you don't need to worry about doing that from up here when you can actually just manage it from dragging and dropping and those kinds of things down here in this. You can also, if this bothers you too much and you want to see more of it, you can move things up by highlighting and clicking and moving it up. All right. So right now we have a lot of information down here. We have our tables across, we have our fields of information, and we're starting to enter our selection criteria. So our member types, we wanted to group by. Our payments amount, though, we want to sum that by the total for the year, right? So we're going to switch that to sum. You can see here there's many options that you can do. Group by, sum, average, min, max, count, standard deviations, variances, first or last name. You can do some very extensive expressions in SQL. You can also do where assignments. Where assignments come into handy when you're doing things by date. And I'm going to show you that as we move into number 9 on page 2 that says how to define your date. So we go ahead and select where. When we select where, it'll automatically uncheck the show button. And this is crucial because if you were not to do this, it would literally sum every day of the year by member type. And that's a very lengthy report. That's not what we want to know. We want to see by member type, so 3 lines of data, by patron, by donor, by friend. For the entire year, how much did each of those different areas raise money for? All right. So down here in the criteria line, we want to better define the date, right? We need to be more specific about grabbing the entire year of 2017. This database has more than the year of 2017. So if we were just to leave it empty, we would pull all the data in the database, okay? So if you'll see on line 9, it says to type in between 01/01/2017, and this is in month, day, year calculations, the word and then all the way a full year is to December 31st, 2017. And when you hit the enter button, it will automatically change it into the syntax, SQL syntax that will automatically set that criteria for this and send it back. So this looks very similar to our screenshot on top of page 3 for number 1. And the only thing difference, of course, I said, is that this shows we are showing all the way back to 2017 or 2007 for some data that used to be in there, which is no longer in there, but for people who might have 2007 access. And that's okay. Most people are up to date and using the most latest version on 365. So here we are, and we are done with what we've defined. We've mapped this out. We know what we want. And when you're finished with that, you hit up here on the design tab button, you hit the red exclamation run. And when you do that, this is what your result is. This result is accurate. So here is the actual answer. Now, one thing we haven't done yet is we haven't saved this information, and we have to rename our headers and titles of this information. So I'm not going to do all of those details for you. I am going to notice that it's really important for you to save. So you just go into the Save button, click Save As, say yes, you want to save it, say yes, you want to save your query. You rename your query. On page 3, it says which query and the name of it for you with your initials, okay? And when I do that, it's going to ask me to save my database, right? And so I want to save my database in a place that is helpful, that I'm going to have access to it again. Now, if you're working from your own personal computer and laptop, you already have a safe place to put it. If you're working from an external drive, you have a safe place to put it. If you're putting it on your P drive, here's where we come into some problems. It's a safe place to hold it when you need to be out and working on it from different computers. Excellent, we need that. However, when you do your assignment, you're going to need to download it every single time to the desktop that you're working from and work from that computer's desktop. Save all of your information and then copy the entire file back over to your P drive in an updated name so you know which one is the most recent one. Really crucial. You cannot operate on your P drive and save all of your information. You will lose data. You will have to do this assignment over again. So, all right, so we go in here and we can see this, and you can do a couple of things for this assignment. Most people go through and do all the queries, 1 through 7. And then when they're done with the queries, they will copy and paste this information over to a Word document. So I'm just going to keep going through. Page 4 gives you some screenshots on how to do 5, 6, and 7. Page 6 or page 5 lets you know how to rename your query, how to rename your fields, how to rename your headings, and all of those kinds of things that are super helpful, right? And then on page 6, it'll tell you how to finish this portion of part 1 of the assignment. And you need to put all of these queries into a Word document. So most people just copy and paste it. And when they copy and paste it over to a Word document, they will rename the titles and headers at that time. Please make sure to put them in order on your assignment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is appropriately numbered to the assignment title and name of what is number 1. So please don't put number 1 and then add the query for number 7. That's really distracting and you will get points knocked down for that. And in addition, make sure that you change all your titles and headers. And so these are your headers for each of your fields, right? And you also need to change your titles because these are all in code right now. This is SQL information. This is SQL code to help them understand how to relate to the data. But SQL doesn't work in spaces, right? So you have to go through and rename everything in a word and common nomenclature of how we would name this. So for example, a common title would be the 2017 totals for membership dues, or sum of payments for 2017 by member type description or member description would be an excellent title. So if you have any questions, please ask me on the course Q&A because I imagine your questions will be helpful to other people. I've given you lots of hints on why things won't work and why things will work, including having too many tables and how to rename. All of this is outlined in your assignment. It's really crucial that you read every line step by step because you can't skip a step and move to another section. And so follow along in the document, go through the different things. Your criteria line is going to be crucial for many of the aspects that you're trying to do and what's asking you to do, not just by date, but by other things. You'll see in the questions. And make sure you copy all of your work into a Word document and turn in that Word document online by the 17th. Thank you.